Well, there's a new twist today in the long-running saga over Canada's military strength in the sky. CBC News has learned the federal government has quietly begun buying key components for more F-35 fighter jets.
For almost a year, Canada's plan to buy American-made F-35s has been contentious. But now the Prime Minister has confirmed his government has quietly been making payments to potentially purchase more of these fighter jets.
There's no study of the contract. There's no suspension of the contract. And when United States call and say, you give us your money and you buy the planes, Canada, as always, says, yes, sir.
Something unusual is happening in Canada's defense plans, and it has started to attract attention from government officials, military experts, and everyday citizens. For months, many people believe that Canada might slow down or even reconsider one of the biggest military purchases in its history. Public statements from Ottawa sounded careful and uncertain, almost as if the government was stepping back to think again about buying advanced fighter jets from the United States. At the same time, relations between Canada and the United States were becoming tense because of trade disagreements. Political leaders on both sides were making strong statements, and tariffs were being placed on certain industries. Because of this atmosphere, many observers thought the fighter jet deal would quietly lose momentum. It seemed possible that the project might be delayed or reduced. However, recent information suggests that the process behind the purchase never truly stopped. In fact, some parts of the program have continued moving forward. This has raised an important question. Is Canada actually reconsidering the deal, or is it simply buying time while keeping its options open? The aircraft at the center of this debate is the F-35 Lightning II, a modern stealth fighter built by the American defense company Lockheed Martin. In 2023, Canada officially agreed to purchase 88 of these jets. The decision represented the largest investment ever made by the Royal Canadian Air Force. The goal was to replace the aging CF-18 Hornet fleet and ensure Canada could continue operating closely with its allies, especially the United States and other NATO partners. When the announcement was first made, the plan seemed final. The government described it as a long-term modernization project that would strengthen the country's air defense for decades. The F-35 is known for its advanced technology, including stealth features that make it difficult to detect by radar. It also has powerful sensors and communication systems that allow pilots to share information with other aircraft and military units in real time. But politics soon complicated the situation. During the presidency of Donald Trump, trade disputes between the United States and Canada became more intense. Tariffs were introduced on Canadian metals and other industries, which created frustration among Canadian leaders. Political tensions grew, and discussions about the fighter jet purchase began to sound different. Instead of presenting the deal as a straightforward military program, some people started to see it as a symbol of Canada's relationship with the United States. Critics asked whether it was wise to depend so heavily on American defense equipment during a period of economic conflict. In response to these concerns, the Canadian government announced that the agreement would be reviewed. Many Canadians interpreted this review as a real pause. When officials say something is under review, people usually assume that changes might follow. The number of jets could be reduced, the timeline might shift, or the entire plan could even be canceled. For a while, it appeared that the future of the program was uncertain. Yet behind the scenes, another story was developing. Reports revealed that Canada had begun securing long lead components for additional aircraft. These parts are not small accessories. They include major structural pieces and complicated systems that require years to manufacture. Because of the time required to produce them, they must be ordered well in advance. Once these components enter the production process, it becomes difficult to cancel them without paying large financial penalties. This means that even while the government publicly discussed reviewing the program, money was still being invested to keep Canada's place in the global F-35 production line. Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed that payments for these long lead items were continuing. According to reports, this approach allows Canada to maintain flexibility during negotiations with the United States. If relations improve and the government decides to move ahead with the full purchase, Canada will not lose its position in the manufacturing schedule. Another factor is timing. Military aircraft programs move slowly, often taking many years from order to delivery. If Canada completely withdrew now and later decided to rejoin, it could be pushed far back in the queue. That delay might mean waiting additional years before the new fighters become operational. Financial issues also play a role in the debate. The overall cost of the F-35 program for Canada has already risen beyond early estimates. Reports suggest that expenses have increased by several $billions. This has led to criticism from people who believe the money could be better spent on healthcare, housing, or infrastructure. Still, the program continues to move forward step by step. Canada has firmly committed to the first 16 aircraft, which are expected to begin arriving around 2026. Meanwhile, the government has secured parts for 14 more jets. The remaining 72 aircraft have not yet been fully confirmed, leaving room for adjustments in the future. One major reason the F-35 remains attractive to military planners is its role in North American defense. Canada and the United States jointly operate the North American Aerospace Defense Command, commonly known as NORAD. This organization is responsible for monitoring and protecting the airspace of both countries. For decades, NORAD has depended on close cooperation between Canadian and American forces. They share radar systems, command centers, and fighter operations. Supporters of the F-35 argue that using the same aircraft platform would make this cooperation smoother, especially because the jets are designed to share information quickly across digital networks. However, not everyone agrees that both countries must operate identical aircraft to work together effectively. Some analysts say modern software systems can connect many different types of planes. According to this view, communication technology matters more than using the same physical equipment. Because of this debate, Canada has begun exploring the possibility of operating a mixed fleet. Under this idea, the Royal Canadian Air Force would use a smaller number of F-35 jets while also purchasing another type of fighter aircraft. This approach could spread risk and create more economic opportunities within Canada. One alternative that has received attention is the Saab JS-39 Gripen E from Sweden. Supporters point out that it is cheaper to operate and designed to perform well in cold environments like the Arctic. Saab has also promised strong economic benefits, including reinvesting the full value of the contract into Canada's economy and possibly building aircraft within the country. Such proposals appeal to those who want Canada to rebuild its domestic aerospace industry. The idea of producing fighter jets at home carries emotional weight because of the country's history with the Avro Aero project. In the late 1950s, Canada developed the CF-105 Aero, one of the most advanced interceptor aircraft of its time. When the government canceled the project in 1959, it ended Canada's ability to design and manufacture its own frontline fighters. That decision remains controversial even today. Some Canadians see it as a lost opportunity that weakened the nation's aerospace independence. Because of that memory, the current fighter jet debate often touches on questions of national pride and sovereignty. Economic considerations add another layer to the issue. More than 100 Canadian companies have participated in the F-35 supply chain at different stages. Thousands of jobs depend on this work, and future contracts could bring billions of dollars into the country. Canceling most of the aircraft order might put many of those opportunities at risk. At the same time, military leaders emphasize the technical advantages of the F-35. Its stealth design, powerful sensors, and integrated systems give pilots a clear view of the battlefield. Many experts believe these features make it one of the most capable combat aircraft currently available. In the end, the decision facing Canada is not simply about choosing between two airplanes. It is about balancing military capability, economic benefits, political relationships, and national independence. With the first aircraft already on order and additional components being purchased, the country remains deeply connected to the F-35 program. Yet the final shape of Canada's future fighter fleet has not been fully decided. As global tensions continue to shift and alliances evolve, Canadian leaders must weigh their options carefully. The choice they make will influence the nation's air power and defense strategy for many decades to come. Canada's long-term decision about fighter jets becomes even more complex when we look at how the F-35 program works around the world. This aircraft was never meant to serve just one nation. From the beginning, it was designed as a shared platform that many allied countries could use together. The goal was to create a system where different air forces could operate almost like one team. The idea behind this concept was straightforward but very ambitious. If several nations fly the same aircraft, their pilots can exchange information instantly during missions. Data about targets, threats, and the battlefield can move between aircraft without delays or confusion. Because the jets use the same software and communication systems, they can coordinate their actions much faster. This level of cooperation has started to change the way modern air forces think about combat in the sky. The thinking behind this strategy comes from lessons learned in past wars. During the Second World War, the United States discovered that fighter planes often did not have enough range to protect bombers for an entire mission. Once the escort fighters had to turn back because of low fuel, bombers became easy targets for enemy aircraft. Years later, during the Vietnam War, American forces faced a different problem. More than 3,300 U.S. aircraft were lost during that conflict. Many of those losses happened because new threats appeared faster than the technology meant to counter them. Surface-to-air missiles and enemy interceptors created serious dangers, while electronic warfare and awareness systems were still developing. Pilots often had limited information about what was happening around them. Later conflicts, including operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, added another lesson. Military planners realized that aircraft connected through shared information networks could perform much better than planes operating alone. When different platforms exchange intelligence in real time, commanders gain a clearer understanding of the battlefield. All of these experiences influence the design of the F-35. The aircraft combines several advanced features into one system. Its stealth shape makes it harder for enemy radar to detect. Powerful sensors collect huge amount of information about nearby aircraft, missiles, and ground activity. Inside the cockpit, computers combine that data into a clear picture so pilots can quickly understand the situation. Even more important, the aircraft can send this information to other F-35 jets and allied military systems. In simple terms, each plane becomes part of a larger network. Supporters say this creates a shared awareness across the battlefield, where every pilot can see the same information almost instantly. Many defense experts believe this type of connected warfare will define the future of air combat. However, the same feature that makes the F-35 powerful also creates concern for some governments. Operating these jets over the long term requires access to a special digital support system. This network manages maintenance schedules, software updates, spare parts, and mission data. The system is hosted on American servers, which means partner nations depend on U.S. infrastructure to keep their aircraft fully functional. During peaceful periods, this arrangement feels like normal cooperation between allies. But during times of political tension, it can raise uncomfortable questions. Some Canadian leaders have openly discussed the possibility that serious diplomatic conflicts could interrupt access to these systems. If that ever happened, aircraft might not receive critical updates or maintenance information when they need it most. These concerns are not limited to Canada. Several European countries have also begun to rethink their military purchases. Some leaders believe relying too heavily on American defense technology could become risky if political relationships change. For example, French President Emmanuel Macron has encouraged European nations to consider alternatives built within Europe. His argument is that regional industries should develop their own advanced military systems instead of always buying equipment from the United States. Spain recently took a step in that direction. In late 2025, the country canceled a major F-35 purchase and redirected about $10.5 billion toward European projects. These include programs such as the Future Combat Air System and additional Eurofighter Typhoon aircraft. The goal is to strengthen Europe's defense industry and reduce dependence on outside suppliers. Because of this global discussion, Canada's choice has become more significant than it might appear at first. If Ottawa decides to reduce its F-35 purchase, it could send a signal that even one of America's closest partners sees risks in relying too much on a single system. On the other hand, moving ahead with all 88 aircraft would show continued confidence in the partnership and in the shared technology behind the program. The financial scale of the project also attracts attention. Experts estimate that the global F-35 program could cost more than $2 trillion over its entire lifetime. That total includes research, development, production, and decades of maintenance for thousands of aircraft worldwide. Because of this enormous price tag, The program is often described as the most expensive defense project ever created. The standard F-35A version costs roughly $80 million per aircraft before adding engines, training packages, and other support services. Other versions of the jet can exceed $100 million each. Those figures also do not include the long-term costs of operating and maintaining a stealth fleet. For Canada, the numbers are especially important. Reports suggest that the country's F-35 program has already gone about $8 billion over early budget estimates. With national spending priorities like healthcare, housing, and infrastructure competing for funding, critics argue that every additional commitment must be carefully considered. Supporters respond by pointing out that the program spreads costs across many partner countries. Because dozens of nations share development and upgrade expenses, each individual aircraft can remain relatively affordable compared with building a completely new fighter jet from scratch. Large production numbers also help keep the global supply chain active. Canadian companies benefit from that supply chain. More than 110 firms across the country have worked on parts and specialized components for the aircraft at different stages. Thousands of skilled workers are involved in this production network. If Canada completely withdrew from the program, the country could lose billions of dollars in future contracts. Because of these competing factors, some analysts suggest a compromise. Canada could operate a smaller number of F-35 aircraft for missions that require stealth and deep integration with American forces. At the same time, another type of fighter could handle routine patrols and sovereignty missions over Canada's large northern territory. This mixed fleet approach might balance military needs with economic goals. However, it also brings complications. Running two different aircraft types means separate training programs, maintenance systems, spare parts inventories, and technical support teams. Over time, those extra requirements could increase costs rather than reduce them. Another issue involves the North American Aerospace Defense Command, better known as NORAD. For decades, Canada and the United States have worked together through this joint organization to protect North American airspace. Operating the same aircraft makes coordination easier during joint exercises and real-world responses to potential threats. If Canada chooses different fighter jets from the United States, the partnership would still exist. However, more effort might be needed to ensure the two forces can communicate and operate smoothly during missions. All of these questions bring attention back to one quiet but important detail. Canada continues paying for long lead components of future F-35 aircraft. These early orders keep the country's place in a global production line that stretches many years ahead. If Canada stepped away completely, it could lose that position and face long delays if it later decided to return. For now, the government seems to be keeping its options open. Public discussions emphasize that the program is under review, while technical steps continue to move forward in the background. As the first aircraft are expected to arrive in 2026, Canada must eventually decide whether to fully commit, reduce its order, or explore a different path for its future air force.